Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm your host, and today we're exploring the, well, surprisingly complex world of some really tiny but incredibly important plants.
That's right.
We're doing a deep dive into a chapter from Raven Biology of Plants,
Mm-hmm.
zeroing in on bryophytes.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission is basically to break down the key stuff, the essential knowledge, the main concepts, and maybe some surprising bits about liverworts, mosses, and hornworts. Make it all clear, engaging, without you needing the textbook right there.
And what's really fascinating here, I think, is that these plants, they seem so humble, right? Just little green things.
Yeah, you hardly notice them sometimes.
Exactly. But they're absolutely pivotal in Earth's ecosystems. And they're crucial, really crucial, for understanding that whole evolutionary journey of how plants first made it onto land. They basically reshaped the planet. They're like these living time capsules, giving us direct clues about how life adapted way back when.
Okay, living time capsules. I like that. That really sets the stage. So let's start with the basics. We're talking about bryophytes, these leafy or sometimes flat plants, liverworts, mosses, hornworts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most people will probably picture them in like damp, shady spots, forests, wetlands, that kind of thing. Is that the whole story, though, or are there more to it?
Whoa, well, that's where it gets really interesting. Yes, they love moisture, definitely. But they are surprisingly adaptable. I mean, really adaptable.
That's it.
Take many mosses, you find them thriving in deserts, covering hot rocks, and they can dry out completely, then bounce back, like physiologically recover in under 5 minutes once they get wet again.
5 minutes. Seriously.
Seriously. And they dominate huge areas up north of the Arctic Circle. They survive the extreme cold in Antarctica. And some are even aquatic. There's this one moss, Fontanalis dolicarlica, living in the Baltic Sea, which is low salinity water.
So not just damp forests, then.
Not at all. Their resilience is pretty remarkable.
That adaptability is kind of mind-blowing. And it really points to their ecological importance, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, they can survive tough places, but what's their bigger role? What do they actually do for the planet?
Oh, they do a lot. They add significantly to global plant biodiversity, for starters. They create these little microhabitats for all sorts of tiny creatures.
Right.
But maybe even bigger is their role in the global carbon cycle. Just think about sphagnum peatlands. They cover maybe, 1 to 3% of the Earth's land surface?
Tiny amount.
Tiny. But they store something like 400 gigatons of organic carbon. It's this massive carbon sink.
Wow, 400 gigatons.
Huge amount. And they're often the very first things to colonize bare rock or soil, sometimes with lichens. They literally prepare the ground for other plants.
The pioneers.
Exactly, pioneers. Plus, they're really sensitive to air pollution. So if you see lots of healthy bryophytes around, it's usually a good sign the air is clean. They're natural indicators.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, they're our best living models for the earliest land plants. They show us how life started to adapt to land and, began changing terrestrial environments millions and millions of years ago.
It's clear they're super important to understand. Now, thinking about that deep past, you mentioned their role in plants moving onto land. Can you expand on that? How do they fit in as this sort of evolutionary bridge between algae and the more complex vascular plants?
Yeah, they really are transitional forms. Bryophytes and all land plants, we call them embryophytes, they share some key features with their closest relatives, the carapacian green algae.
Boy.
Things like chloroplast structure, the way their sperm cells swim with sideways flagella. And importantly, some of those algae, like Coleochaete, already show hints of land plant traits. They keep their fertilized eggs, the zygotes, inside the parent body. Sometimes they even have special cells to feed them. That's an early version of metrotrophy, which is fundamental to land plants.
Metrotrophy.
Mm-hmm.
So mother feeding, basically.
Essentially, yes. Nourishment from the parent. Building on that, bryophytes and vascular plants evolved 6 key innovations, like a toolkit for living on land.
6 key things. Okay.
First, distinct male and female reproductive structures, Antheridia and Archegonia, and they have this protective layer of sterile cells around them.
Protection. Got it.
Second, they keep the embryo inside the female structure, nourishing it. That's why we call plants embryophytes. The embryo is key.
Right. You said that. Embryophytes.
Third, a multicellular diploid sporophyte. That means they can make way more spores and more genetic variety from a single fertilization event.
More spores, more chances. Makes sense.
Fourth, their spore-making sacs, the sporangia, are also multicellular with a protective jacket. Fifth, the spores themselves have walls made of spore pollenin.
Spore pollenin. That's the really tough stuff, right?
Super tough. Resists decay, resists drying out, perfect for floating through the air. Hmm. And finally, sixth, they grow from the tip, from what's called an apical meristem, a zone of active cell division.
That's quite a list of upgrades for land life.
Hmm.
So bryophytes have all this,
Hmm.
but how are they different from the vascular plants like ferns and trees that came later? What makes them unique?
Well, the big difference is plumbing, or really the lack of sophisticated plumbing. Bryophytes generally don't have true xylem and phloem with lignin, that rigid structural tissue for transporting water and sugars over long distances.
Oh, okay. No pipes.
Sort of, yeah.
Hmm.
Some have simpler conducting cells, but not the real deal. Also, their life cycle is different. The dominant part, the green plant you usually see, that's the gamophyte generation. It's larger, free-living.
Yeah.
The sporophyte, the part that makes spores, is smaller, usually unbranched, just has one spore capsule, and it stays attached to the gamophyte its whole life, depending on it for food.
So the sporophyte lives on the gamophyte.
Exactly. Whereas in vascular plants, it's the sporophyte generation, the fern frond, the tree that's large, branched, and independent. It's a total flip in dominance.
That's a fundamental shift.
It really is. And phylogenetically, we think liverworts branched off first. They're the sister group to all other land plants. Hornworts seem to be a bit closer to the vascular plants.
Fascinating evolutionary story. Okay, so we've seen their adaptations over time. Let's zoom in now on their structure. How are these things actually built? What do the gamophytes look like up close?
Okay, so bryophyte gamophytes generally come in two flavors. Some are thalloid, meaning they're kind of flat, ribbon-like, maybe branching in twos. You see this in some liverworts and the hornworts.
Flat and branching.
Yeah, often quite thin, which helps them soak up water and CO2 directly. A great example is Marchantia, a common thalloid liverwort. It has these specialized pores on its upper surface. They look like little barrels, actually.
Barrels.
Yeah, tiny ones. They regulate gas exchange, kind of like stomata, and they can even partially close up when it gets dry to save water.
Clever little barrels. And the other form?
The other form is leafy. That's what you see in some liverworts and most mosses. They have structures that look like tiny leaves and stems.
Look like, but aren't really.
Exactly, because they don't have that vascular tissue inside. They anchor themselves with rhizoids, simple filaments. Multicellular in mosses, just single cells in liverworts and hornworts.
And these rhizoids, they don't absorb water like roots.
Not really, no. It's mostly for gripping onto the surface. Water and nutrients are absorbed pretty much all over the plant body directly through the cells.
Okay.
And it's worth mentioning, many bryophytes team up with fungi or cyanobacteria. These symbiotic partners help them get nutrients, especially things like nitrogen.
So they get by with a little help from their friends. What about making more bryophytes? How do they reproduce? You mentioned they need water.
Right. They have two main ways. Asexually, lots of them can just fragment. A little piece breaks off and grows into a whole new plant.
Simple enough.
Yeah. Or they make specialized little pappets of cells called gemmae. Marchantia has these cool little gemma cups on its surface. Raindrops splash in, knock the gemmae out, and they wash away to start new plants.
Splash cups, I like that. Very descriptive. And sexually. That's where the water comes in.
That's exactly where the water is essential, because the sperm cells are the only cells in their whole life cycle that have flagella and can swim.
Ah, so they need a film of water at least.
Precisely. To swim from the male structure to the female structure containing the egg, it's a real bottleneck for them, tying them to moist conditions for at least part of the time.
Okay, so what are these structures? Antheridia and Archegonia.
Yep. Antheridia are the male ones, usually stalked, producing lots of biflagellated sperm. Archegonia are the female ones, flask-shaped. They have a long neck canal leading down to a swollen base, the venter, which holds a single egg.
And the sperm swims down the neck.
Correct. When the egg is ready, the cell... After fertilization, we get that process called metrotrophy again.
Right, the mother feeding.
Exactly. The zygote stays inside the archegonium, protected, and gets nutrients from the parent gamophyte. There's even a specialized zone of cells called the placenta that forms between them, with intricate wall ingrowths to maximize nutrient transfer. It's quite sophisticated.
Like our placenta. Wow.
Analogous, yes. And fascinatingly, similar structures are found in coleochaete, suggesting this placental transfer evolved way back in their algal ancestors.
Incredible. So the zygote develops.
Into a multicellular embryo, then into the mature sporophyte. This typically has three parts. A foot that stays embedded in the gamophyte tissue, a stalk called a seta, and the capsule, which is the sporangium where spores are made. And initially, the whole developing sporophyte is covered by the stretched remnants of the archegonium called the calyptra.
That explains the embryophyte name again. That protected, nurtured embryo is key.
What about features on the sporophyte itself?
Yeah, the sporophyte epidermis is interesting. Mosses and hornworts actually have stomata, those pores with guard cells, just like vascular plants.
Oh, really? Even though the sporophyte is dependent? Yep. Some moss stomata are even unique, just a single donut-shaped guard cell. Hornwort stomata are weird too. They stay permanently open. But having stomata at all is seen as a big evolutionary link to vascular plants. Liverworts, though, generally lack stomata.
Interesting difference.
And of course, inside the capsule, you get those tough sporopollenin-walled spores ready for dispersal by wind.
Fantastic overview of the general plant. Okay, let's dive into the specific groups now. First up, liverworts, phylum Marchantiophyta, about 5,200 species. You mentioned the name comes from their shape.
Yeah, some genera have Bryophytes shaped vaguely like a liver. It's from the old doctrine of signatures idea, where plant shapes supposedly indicated their use. And wortwort just means herb or plant.
Okay, so what makes liverworts distinct?
Well, they're mostly small, often in those moist, shady habitats. Their gametophytes can be complex thalloid ones, like Marchatia we talked about, with its differentiated layers and those barrel pores.
Right, the pores.
Marchantia also has those really unique elevated structures for its sex organs. The antheridia on disc-headed stalks and archegonia on these umbrella-like stalks makes them quite recognizable.
Looks like tiny umbrellas and discs.
Kinda, yeah. And inside the Marchantia sporophyte capsule, along with the spores, are these special cells called elaters. They look like long, twisted springs.
Elaters?
Yeah, they have wall thickenings that absorb moisture. When the capsule dries and opens, the elaters twist and writhe hygroscopically, responding to humidity changes, which helps to flick the spores out.
Clever dispersal mechanism.
Very. And don't forget the leafy liverworts. They're actually the most diverse group within the phylum.
Yeah, yes, the leafy ones.
Mm,
How do we tell them apart from mosses? They sound similar.
good question. Key differences. Leafy liverwort leaves are usually in two main rows, maybe with a smaller third row underneath. Critically, they lack a midrib, a central vein, which most moss leaves have, and liverwort leaves are often deeply lobed or divided, looking quite intricate, whereas moss leaves are usually simpler, often entire, and arranged spirally.
Okay, no midrib, often lobed, 2 rows. Got it.
And their reproductive structures are a bit different too. The developing sporophyte is often protected by a tube-like structure called a perianth.
Perianth. Okay,
Yeah.
so from liverworts, let's turn to the true mosses, phylum Bryophyta. Now, you said we need to be clear about what a true moss is.
Yes, because lots of things get called moss, like Spanish moss, which is a flowering plant, or reindeer moss, which is a lichen. We're talking specifically about phylum Bryophyta.
Gotcha. And there are different groups within this.
Three main classes we usually focus on: Sphagnidae, the peat mosses; Andreidae, the granite mosses; and Bryidae, the ones most people think of as true mosses.
Let's start with Sphagnidae, the peat mosses. Sphagnum, you mentioned its carbon storage.
Immense ecological importance, yeah. Sphagnum is amazing. Its leaves are just one cell thick but have this incredible structure. Large, dead, hollow cells called hyalocysts with pores and spiral
The
thickening.
ones that hold water.
Exactly. They can hold up to 20 times their dry weight in water. It's like a built-in sponge network surrounding the narrow, living photosynthetic cells. This water-holding capacity is why they create bogs and peatlands.
And you said they store huge amounts of carbon.
Phenomenal amounts, about 400 gigatons globally. They also make their environment acidic and have antiseptic properties because of phenolic compounds in their cell walls. Historically, dried sphagnum was used for wound dressings, even diapers.
Wow. Practical uses, too.
Absolutely. Though using peat as fuel is controversial now because of wetland drainage and releasing all that stored carbon.
Right, climate change concerns.
Definitely. And sphagnum's spore dispersal is something else. The capsule dries, shrinks, and builds up air pressure inside, like up to 5 bars, similar to a truck tire.
Whoa.
Then, pop, the lid, the operculum blows off with an audible click, shooting the spores out at high speed in a little vortex ring. It's explosive.
Explosive moss. That's brilliant. Okay, what about the granite mosses, Andreidae?
These are tough little guys, Andrea. Found on granite rocks, often in mountains or the Arctic, they're usually dark, reddish-brown, or blackish.
And they have a special way of releasing spores, too.
They do. Their capsules don't have a lid that pops off. Instead, the capsule splits along 4 vertical lines. When it's dry, these slits open up like valves to let the spores out. When it's humid, they close again. Very different from sphagnum or the other mosses.
Neat adaptation to their environment. Okay, finally, the Bryophytes, the true mosses. This is the biggest group.
By far. Around 10,000 species. These often start life as a branching filamentous stage called a protonema, which looks a bit like green algae.
Okay.
And many Bryophytes show those specialized conducting tissues we mentioned earlier, the hadron with water-conducting hydroids, and sometimes leptum with food-conducting leptoids.
The hint of vascular tissue?
Exactly. A really interesting evolutionary step. For reproduction, their antheridia are often grouped in those splash cups you liked, where raindrops help disperse the sperm.
Efficient use of rain.
And their sporophytes are usually more complex than in liverworts. Often a distinct foot, a long seta or stalk elevating the capsule, and that capsule frequently has stomata.
The donut-shaped ones sometimes?
Sometimes, yes. And the really characteristic feature of Bryophyte capsules is often the peristome.
Peristome.
It's a ring, or rings, of tooth-like structures around the mouth of the capsule, under the lid. These teeth are hygroscopic. They bend and move in response to changes in humidity.
So they control spore release.
Precisely. When it's dry and windy, ideal for dispersal, the teeth often bend outwards, opening the capsule mouth and letting spores sift out gradually. Some capsules can release up to 50 million spores. The structure of the peristome is incredibly diverse and really important for identifying different moss species.
50 million spores.
Mhm.
Wow. And these true mosses, they grow in different ways, like cushions or carpets.
Yeah, we often talk about two main growth forms. Cushiony mosses are typically upright, not much branching, and the sporophytes pop up at the tips of the main stems. Feathery mosses are more creeping, highly branched, forming mats, and their sporophytes arise from side branches. You'll see a lot of these feathery ones as epiphytes, growing on trees in rainforests.
Cushiony and feathery. Good descriptions.
Okay.
Okay, last group. Hornworts. Phylum Anthoceratophyta. Least diverse, you said. Around 300 species. Named for the horn-like sporophyte.
That's right. Think Anthoceras. Their gametophytes are generally simple, phalloid rosettes on the ground. They kind of look like some phalloid liverworts at first glance.
But different.
Oh, yes. Key features. Most hornwort cells have just one single large chloroplast, often with a pyrenoid, which is very like their algal ancestors, coleochaete, very different from the multiple small chloroplasts in other land plants.
A single big chloroplast.
And they usually have internal cavities filled with nitrogen-fixing cyanobacteria, nostoc. This symbiosis is crucial for their nutrition, especially getting nitrogen.
Built-in fertilizer factories.
Pretty much. But the really defining feature is that sporophyte. It's this long, upright, cylindrical horn. It has a foot embedded in the gametophyte, and then the long sporangium. But no seta, no stalk.
No stalk. How does it get tall then?
That's the genius part. It has a unique meristem, a zone of continuous cell division right at the base, between the foot and the sporangium.
A basal meristem.
Yes. And this meristem just keeps dividing, pushing the sporangium upwards from the base. It grows continuously, producing new spores down low while the tip matures, splits open, and releases older spores.
So it's like a spore factory that keeps growing.
Exactly. You can find all stages of development in one horn. It's totally unique among bryophytes. And these horn-like sporophytes are photosynthetic themselves. They have a cuticle, and they have stomata, though those stomata stay permanently open.
Continuous growth, photosynthesis, stomata. They sound quite advanced in some ways.
They have a really interesting mix of ancestral and derived traits. Spore release is helped by pseudolaters, multicellular structures, unlike liverwort elaters, and by the horn twisting as it dries and splits open.
Amazing. So, reflecting on all this,
Yeah.
what does it all mean? This whole deep dive really shows that bryophytes, liverworts, mosses, hornworts, they're not just some minor footnote, are they?
Not at all. They are absolutely crucial evolutionary links. They show us those first critical steps plants took to conquer land, and they're ecological powerhouses in their own right.
We saw those key adaptations, protected sex organs, the nurtured embryo, those tough spores, and each group, liverworts, mosses, hornworts, has evolved its own really specialized, clever ways of doing things.
From sphagnum's explosive capsules and water-holding leaves, to the peristome teeth in mosses, to the continuously growing horn of the hornworts, incredible diversity in structure and function.
And they're still vital today, right, in carbon cycles as habitat, as those environmental indicators.
Absolutely vital. They might be small, but their impact is huge.
So it leaves me thinking, well, it kind of raises an important question, doesn't it? Given all this ingenuity, this adaptability we've seen in these supposedly primitive plants, colonizing all sorts of tough places, what can we really learn from them?
Mm.
I mean, studying organisms that maybe don't fit our usual ideas of advanced or complex life,
Hmm.
how do their solutions, maybe simple seeming solutions, how can they inspire new ways of thinking? Resilience about survival, especially in, changing world.
That's a fantastic question to ponder.
Hmm.
What fundamental lessons in biological innovation are hidden in these often overlooked corners of the plant kingdom? What can they teach us about thriving with constraints?
Powerful thoughts indeed. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the truly incredible world of bryophytes. We hope you found it as fascinating as we did. Keep that curiosity alive, explore the green things under your feet, and we'll see you next time.